It's your boy Charles. Charles on as well, just checking in. Hope you guys having a good evening. We are getting ready to delve into another book audio reaction. Let's go ahead and play it, and I'm gonna come back with my reaction. Appreciate it, guys.
As fucked up as things were after Willie D left and all through 1992 and early 93, there were two great things that came out of that stretch. N.O. Joe and Mike Dean. Those two guys were key. I can't give them enough credit. I've always had the voice, but those dark and rolling beats that go thump in the trunk and sound like death's either sitting shotgun, pulling up behind you, or posted up around the next corner, that's some shit that me, Beto, Mike, and N.O. Joe, and later Tone Capone all created together. We all had incredible chemistry, and because of that, we were able to take some of the ideas that I'd been exploring on my earlier records and really develop a true sound. And once we had it, I'd carry it with me for the rest of my career. I met Mike Dean first. Mike was Beto's partner. Beto brought him in as the engineer for Street Life, a record we were doing for the soundtrack to the movie South Central. I've always liked Mike, but I tell you, when I first met him, Mike Dean was a straight-up fucking cowboy. He was in his early 20s, and he was like a damn hippie redneck. Not on some KKK shit. He was more like a redneck stoner, like Willie Nelson, but down to kick it in the hood. He had a pickup truck, long hair, and a shit ton of dogs and guns. He smoked a lot of pot and did a lot of drugs, and he was definitely on one, that's for sure. He had a beautiful house. I'm talking one of the most beautiful houses in his neighborhood. Marble floors, granite countertops, stainless steel appliances, chef's knives, amazing furniture, beautiful carpet, the whole deal. But then he also had like 50 dogs in that motherfucker, and he'd given them a designated bathroom. Can you believe that shit? A designated bathroom for the dogs. So it was a beautiful place. But with all those damn dogs running around, it was also a complete mess. I remember Tone Capone not wanting to even go in there because the place was so beat. But a lot of shit went on in that house. A lot of shit. And shit got heavy. Those are Mike's stories to tell, but just know he's a real strong dude. Super solid. And he always has been. I loved him as soon as I met him. There aren't too many people I'd rather make music with than Mike Dean. He's a great fucking guy and a brilliant engineer. But he's not only great at what he does, he's also one of the best team players in the business. I think that's one of the reasons why he's had such a long and successful career. It doesn't really matter what type of shit you're on. You can be going for slow-rolling, shit-talking, southern gangster shit, or you can be after that crazy, futuristic orchestral shit that he's been doing with Kanye for all of these years. Mike will come in and tighten your shit up. He's just that sick with it. Mike will hear some shit you're working on, hit a few switches, and all of a sudden it'll just be like, God damn, that shit sounds hard. I'm talking as soon as he hears it, he'll immediately know what to do with it. Whether it's making the beat go backwards at one point, or adding in some reverb, or doing some whole other shit altogether. But as soon as he's done, it's just like, damn, Mike, you are a bad motherfucker. I'd have Mike Dean mix my shit before anyone else. At the same time, he's also an awesome musician. He can play saxophone, keys, drums, whatever you need. He's really among the elites. Not too long after I met Mike Dean, I met N.O. Joe. I was in New Orleans with Big Mello, and we were at a Blockbuster music store, if you remember those. This dude had come up to us, and he was like, "You Scarface, nigga? You Face?" And I was like, "Yeah, what's up?" And he said he made beats. Well, I kind of blew it off like, "Yeah, okay." And I told Mello to go check out his stuff and let me know if it was any good. Well, Mello goes out to hear something in Joe's car, and he comes back inside with his eyes big as hell. He's like, man, you need to hear that shit. That nigga's got something. That nigga's got that gumbo funk. Well, shit. So I went out, and Joe played me some beats, and he told me he had a whole bunch more shit at the house. So we loaded up and headed over there to see what else he was working with. But the thing was, he was actually trying to rap at the time, and he played me this one record, Rollin' in a Nova, and that shit was hard. I think it actually scared me. Sounded like a 6'6" motherfucker just going in. We used to roll in a motherfucking Nova, shooting up bitches in the projects that owed you. When I heard that, I was like, God damn, who the fuck is that? Maybe you can introduce me and I can see about signing him. And then Joe told me that was him. And I looked at him with his Steve Harvey top and green eyes, and I was like, nah, no one's going to believe that shit. Maybe you should stick to making beats. Ha. But Joe's shit was dope. It was the hardest, noisiest shit I had ever heard. And it sounded like nothing that had ever been done before. And that was exactly the kind of shit I was looking for. I always wanted to be working with something that no one else had, and Joe had that. His shit was totally different, and it was completely original. So I got him to drive from New Orleans to Houston to start working with us on my next album. Of course, once everybody at the label heard the kind of shit he was on, they started putting him on everything. Next thing you know, N.O. Joe is the label's in-house producer. And even though I'd brought him to the table to work with me on my shit, I wasn't tripping. I'm a team player, but it just goes to show I know what it's supposed to sound like. And when I hear some real talent, I don't fuck around. I go straight for it. Then when Joe plugged up with Mike Dean, that shit was magic. It was pure chaos. The first album Joe and Mike worked on together was the Ghetto Boys' 1993 album, Till Death Do Us Part. James had brought in Big Mike to take Willie D's spot in the Ghetto Boys, and he'd rented us a beach house in South Texas to work out of. But that album was the last thing I was focused on. I just do my shit and then leave. I wasn't trying to hang. I didn't want to be a part of a Ghetto Boys without Willie D. If we were going to do another Ghetto Boys album, I wanted the group to be back the way it was. I had no desire to fuck with that album at all. People always try to make it out like I had some kind of big beef or rivalry with Big Mike during the making of that album. But if you ask me, we never had any problems. Not then and not now. At least, not in my book. If he ever had a problem with me, then that's his problem, not mine. But I'd known Mike for years, long before he joined the Ghetto Boys, before he was in the Convicts even. We didn't do a whole gang of songs together in the studio. The way shit went for us back then, we'd all just kind of do our own thing, and then Jay would come through and pick the people he wanted for the album. The majority of the time, I would go into the studio, and then Mike would go in, and we'd take those separate sessions and make a song. But I always thought Mike was dope. And I've never had a problem with someone getting in and doing their thing when they get their moment to shine. That's what you're supposed to do. That's what you need to do. How else are you going to capitalize? Shit. I never worried about Big Mike taking any kind of light off of me. You can't take the light off of me. I'm lit. All you have to do is look at the albums that came after that. The World Is Yours, The Diary, The Resurrection, The Untouchable, The Fix, and compare that to whatever else, and you'll quickly realize that there isn't a competition, and there never was. So I never had a problem with Big Mike. I hope he got his shine, and that being a part of that album boosted his career. It ain't every MC that gets a chance to be a part of the Ghetto Boys. That's some big, epic shit. That's something to run with. If you ask me, Big Mike is one of the best ever, and I really think he doesn't get his due. He's a beast when it comes to spitting rhymes. You ever heard that old saying, the rhyme did it? Well, with Big Mike, the rhyme did it. He's a hell of an artist, and that first solo album he did, Still Serious, is serious as a motherfucker. I don't know what happened to him after that, because we kind of lost touch, and whatever Mike had going with whoever he had it going on with, Ain't have nothing to do with me. We mind our business down here, and if shit don't pertain to you, then you don't get into it. But anybody who thinks that I somehow didn't appreciate what Mike brought to the table on Till Death Do Us Part has it confused. I didn't have a problem with Mike. I had a problem with the project. But my next solo album, The World Is Yours, was different. I was all in on that album, working with Joe, Beto, and Mike Dean to get my shit tight. Those first couple of Ghetto Boys albums were a little more unpolished, but once we got to The World Is Yours, we had it. From then on, we were dialed in. We had the sound and we didn't let up. It ain't hard to tell. When you listen to our shit and you listen to all of the other shit coming out of Houston in the 80s and 90s, hell, all the way through the early 2000s, you can just hear how we were on an entirely different playing field from everything else that was going on down here. The rest of the city was in the little leagues, while we were in the pros, especially where the production was concerned. Those records are fucking incredible. Once we locked in, we were pumping out some of the most dramatic sounding shit ever. You can't really compare us to anything else that was coming out of Houston at the time. We were right up there with Dr. Dre and NWA and shit like that, really charting a whole new course for rap music as a whole. Fuck a region. And it was all self-taught. Studio time was cheap back then, $50 an hour max. So we'd go in there and camp out and just figure that shit out through trial and error. You can't really get that experience like that now. Not unless you have a big budget to work with or your pockets are super deep. Yeah, you can do a lot more shit on a laptop these days, but it doesn't compare to working on those big boards with studio monitors so you can hear how your shit really sounds. All I know is that as soon as we got in there, we cut loose. We weren't waiting for a lesson or a tutorial or none of that shit. We were ready to go. I know I was. And looking back, for where we came from and what we had, I think we did better than good. We did fucking great. Honestly, I don't think I get enough credit for my production work. People always want to talk about my pen and my voice, which is great, but I definitely know my way around the studio as well as the page. In fact, I did a lot of the beats for some of my biggest songs, like I Seen a Man Die.
Looking for a professional photographer for your next big event? Need video of your special day? Then look no further. For $100 an hour, have a professional photographer or videographer shoot your wedding, birthday party, quinceañera, bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah, anniversary party, or whatever your special occasion may be. Highlight your event with professional, crisp photos and video. Check out Charles Arness Photography on Instagram as well as book us for your next event. Must live in the Southern California area.
Hand of the Dead Body, and a bunch of the other records on the diary in my house, just my Uncle Eddie and me. Of course, before the songs were done, we went in and had Mike play a few chords or Joe take out the drums I'd played on the track and swap them in with his sounds, and then Mike would do his thing in the mix. But the foundation of a lot of my records is all me. I'm talking a lot. All the way back to Mind playing tricks on me. That's why I always say, if you put me in a room full of musicians, I'll make you the best album. I really think I'm as good of a producer as anybody in the game, if not better. Just look at everything I had my hands in from the moment I stepped in the door. I put in a lot of work. I'm talking a lot of work. And if anybody wants to say that I didn't get it in, that's bullshit. My discography speaks for itself. I think the only ones close are Dr. Dre, Timbaland, Pharrell, Tone Capone, Mike Dean, and N.O. Joe. That's it. I'm really that bad.
What's up, y'all? It's your boy Charles and Ezra, just checking in. So what do y'all think about that book, man? Pretty interesting, huh? Crazy, man. Interesting story. Listen, go ahead and leave your comments and subscribe to Charles and Ezra. Appreciate it.